If you're watching these videos chronologically, the theme of the previous video focused on the importance of feeling our fear and processing our feelings in relation to climate change. The question I hear a lot then is, okay, but what do we do with our feelings? What do we do with our fear? Sure, I've processed it, but what then? Am I just meant to sit here holding on to all of these intense emotions? Loneliness has been on the rise for a while now. In 2018, the UK Prime Minister appointed a Minister for Loneliness as a response to the rising epidemic of loneliness. In 2019, a YouGov America study indicated that 30% of millennials feel lonely all or most of the time, with similar numbers being found in Asia and Western Europe. In perceiving the way we relate to climate change and the natural world, a clear pattern I see is that loneliness pervades this space also. People are reporting feeling alone in their experience. Data published in the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health revealed an association between higher climate anxiety and higher loneliness. So in responding to the question, well, what do I do with these feelings? The first thing I suggest is consider who to share them with. The question is not, do we vent? The question is, how do we vent in a skillful way? Dr. Renee Lertzman, environmental psychologist, noted that it's important to identify who we can be emotional with in our world. Who is it okay to share with? Who can we create a space with, either publicly or privately, where we can bring an attitude of, it's all bloody overwhelming and painful, and there's nothing wrong with feeling this way. When we feel that we're allowed to feel the way we do with others, we can feel as though we're safe, which enables our nervous systems to calm down. Essentially, this is a major premise of therapy, being able to witness another's pain with them, enabling them to experience it in a shared manner. Sharing our experience of pain is where we find a way to mend it. As Joanna Macy writes, in our pain we find solidarity. One thing is for sure, we're not going to work through any of the issues we have with climate change or ecosystem collapse alone. We need a collective response if we as a species are going to make it through. And why should it be any different with our feelings? Why should we carry our feelings alone and not work with them as a collective? Often mental health is discussed as an individual consideration. Mental health teachings consistently focus on how to look after yourself, and the emphasis is on the individual and the individual problem. Bessel van der Kolk, one of the foremost respected trauma experts, author of The Body Keeps the Score, writes, however, that before he works with people on their trauma individually, he wants to know how they breathe and move in groups of people. The group can be such an important place of safety and security that when we name our intense feelings, sharing them with the group can be wildly liberating. Must be said, however, showing up to group discussions can be difficult, especially around difficult topics such as climate change and mental health. So many fears emerge. Fear of being pathologized, fear of appearing stupid, fear of being too emotional, of causing others distress. I can go on. And so one of the best ways to offer group discussions is to promote a few principles that allow for a greater sense of safety. To add a few boundaries to the group discussion. Two in particular that I have found to be useful are the following. Number one, confidentiality. At the outset, say that you're going to keep identities de-identified. We can share how we found the group and our own personal experience, but we leave the personal experience of others to the group. Or share things in a way outside of the group that doesn't reveal anything about the people themselves in the group. Principle number two, voluntary participation. This means, of course, that people are free to leave whenever they wish. And whilst that may seem obvious, establishing this principle at the beginning of a group means that people feel a sense of safety in knowing they're not trapped. It also means that people are in the conversation because they want to be there rather than because they feel they have to be. These are the kinds of conversations we've been beginning to have in East Gippsland. Teamed up with Landcare over the past year, we've brought people together under the banner of having a conversation around the relationship between our environment and mental health, and opened up the space for people to share their feelings about it. The premise is that we're having a group discussion, and in this discussion, we're sharing how we feel, nothing more, nothing less. In doing so, people came to share in grief, anger, fear, guilt, hope, and despair. We found that through these meetings, people consistently reported an increase in their feelings of social connection and feelings of being heard. And so one of the most adaptive ways, potentially, of working with our feelings pertaining to climate change might also be a useful way for countering the rise in loneliness as well.